I am Nikarasu with the Paparazzu. In this video, I'll be reviewing the new Marvel Zombies show. I'll be going over what happens in the series, things that I thought were good, and things that I thought were bad. I'll even go over the zombie episode from What If, since this is the start of Marvel Zombies. It's still in the same universe and part of that show's continuity, which is why I'll be including it in this video. But before I get into it, there are two things I want to go over first. I have read the original Marvel Zombies comics, and even Marvel Zombies Resurrection, and even love those comics, but this show isn't a straight-up adaptation of that series. It's based off that series, yes, but it's not a complete adaptation of that. And while I would have preferred for it to be the straight-up adaptation, you can't just say, oh, this show is bad, because it's not a straight-up adaptation of the comics. Just because a Marvel or DC movie doesn't straight-up follow the comics doesn't inherently mean that the movie or show is bad. That's fine if you don't like that, however, that's just your own personal preference. That's an argument based on something that's subjective rather than something that's objective. Now, there will be stuff from the comics that I will mention, since some of them can help me with my points that I make in this video. And just point out, oh hey, this was a cool thing that they actually did in the comic too, something like that. By no means am I saying that the show is bad just because it's not a straight up adaptation from the comics. The other thing I want to mention is something that I find to be really stupid that people have said. Something that they complained about before the show even came out. And that's the fact that this show has characters that they don't care for, that they consider to be C-tier characters. I find this to be really dumb because, one, most of the Avengers you know are already dead, so they can't use those characters. And two, just because you don't like these characters doesn't inherently mean that the show is bad. Now, I'm not saying you have to like these characters, you're fine to feel the way you do about them. But you can't complain about a movie or show using C-tier characters when the MCU have already been doing that. The very first movie of the MCU was Iron Man. You think Iron Man is as popular now as he was before the MCU was a thing? Iron Man was considered a B-tier character before the first Iron Man movie. The MCU didn't start off with an S or A tier character, it started off with a B tier character. Iron Man is as popular as he is now because of the MCU. Also, before the MCU, the Guardians of the Galaxy were considered C tier characters. But despite that, their movies became popular, they ended up getting the trilogy, and their trilogy is loved even to this day. Yet you don't hear anyone complaining about the MCU using Iron Man in the Guardians of the Galaxy when they weren't S or A tier characters before the MCU. Could it be because their movies and their writing as characters are good? Could that be why they're so popular now and why most people love them? Anyways, now that I've gotten those out of the way, let's get on to this review of Marvel Zombies.
Light the fires.
Hulk was sent back to Earth after he's defeated Thanos, and once there, Bruce goes to warn people that Thanos is coming to Earth, like he does in Infinity War. However, here, Bruce Banner meets no one. There's nobody around, not even civilians. Members of the Black Order arrive on Earth, and Bruce tries to get the Hulk out. The Black Order is then sneak attacked by Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Wong. Still wondering how the hell Doctor Strange and Wong got infected. Bruce gets excited seeing Tony again. As Bruce sees Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Wong fighting the Black Order, he notices that something is off. Bruce sees Iron Man and everyone else as zombies. And once the Black Order are also zombies, they try to go for Bruce. Bruce is first saved by Doctor Strange's cape, then by Wasp as she summons a bunch of wasps and ants to kill the zombies. Bruce sees one of the ants eat Iron Man's head, and is completely grossed out by it. And honestly, anybody would be. That's when Spider-Man swoops in and swings away with Bruce. Spider-Man introduces himself as your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and Bruce asks, then what the hell happened to the neighborhood? This is where we're taken back to how the infection started, during the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like in the movie, Hank and the others try to get Janet back from the quantum realm. When Hank is finally reunited with Janet, it isn't good, since Janet is infected with a zombie virus, and she ends up infecting Hank. Zombie Janet and Hank return where they're about to bite Hulk, but she ends up shrinking down to save herself. but unfortunately, Hank and Janet get to Scott. Then we get to what possibly could be the most interesting part in the episode. The Avengers, Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Iron Man, and Black Panther show up to stop the zombies. But before they can do anything, Hank, who shrunk down, ends up biting Captain America and ends up infecting him. I understand that Hank was shrunk down when he first bit Captain America, but at full size, how in the hell is Hank able to overpower a super soldier like Captain America? Even if he was slightly caught off guard, Captain America should easily be able to overpower Hank here. Oh, but it gets even better, because a few humans are able to overpower Iron Man. And this is just so stupid for multiple reasons. Iron Man, in weaker suits, was able to take down aliens and a tank. But yet, in the nano suit that he had in Infinity War, he can't take down a bunch of human-fight zombies? And I don't want to hear that bullshit excuse that, oh, this is a multiverse, anything can happen. That is not a defense. Just because they can come up with other storylines they want doesn't excuse that they can ignore power scaling. It needs to make sense. And it makes no sense that just a few humans can take down Iron Man in his nano suit. Or any of his other suits, really. But aside from that, Iron Man doesn't have to stay on the ground. He can fly and shoot out his repulsors. He wouldn't even need to get close to the zombies. He can just keep his distance if he wanted to. But more importantly, why was Iron Man even there in the first place? Wouldn't it have been better and made more sense for Iron Man to stay behind and possibly find a cure for the zombie virus? While the other Avengers fight off the zombies? Given his intellect, he likely would have found a cure for the zombie virus. He would more than likely come to the same conclusion as Vision and Bruce Banner that the Mind Stone is the key to curing the zombies. But instead of doing that, he just goes out on the field and risks being infected?
Strategic fucking genius.
I can at least see Black Widow and Hawkeye not coming out of this. And Cap was already bit, so I can see him eventually turning, but he still should have been able to overpower Hank and take out some of the other zombies. But as for Iron Man, there is no excuse for that. So Bruce is brought to Spider-Man, and his group of other survivors are hiding. They get intel of a possible location that might have a cure for the zombie virus. So the group heads to Grand Central Terminal. From there, Okoye suggests that they split up, and Spider-Man is against the idea. And suggests they all stay together in case zombies show up, wanting to ensure the safety of the entire group as much as possible. But despite Peter's suggestion, they all split up. Unfortunately, they do end up encountering zombies. Hawkeye, along with other zombies, end up ambushing Sharon and Happy. A zombified Falcon attacks Okoye and Winter Soldier. And a horde of zombies come for Spider-Man. Doctor Strange's cape saves Spider-Man from the zombies. Okoye slices Falcon in half from behind, and Sharon manages to escape from Hawkeye and the other zombies. However, Happy ends up becoming a zombie himself. Okoye apologizes to Spider-Man and admits they should have listened to him and stuck together. And Hope takes a moment to cheer up Peter, who's sad about Happy's death, by complimenting him in Doctor Strange's cape. But things do take a bit of a left turn, as Bucky hears Sharon scream. As Bucky rushes to where Sharon is, he's met with an old friend. Bucky ends up using Captain America's shield to cut him in half. However, as Bucky was dealing with Captain America, Hulk comes in and ends up getting bit by Sharon. She did shrink herself and expand from inside Sharon's body to make her explode, however she was still bitten in the process. They were taken to what has to be my favorite scene in the entire episode. As Hope is slowly dying, she wonders if the rest of the group should continue on with the mission, thinking that it's the huge risk. But Spider-Man tells her that it's not a risk, it's hope. And that it's something that they need, especially in this crisis.
Oh, kid, how do you do it? How do you stay so upbeat after everything?
Practice, I guess. My mom, Dad, Uncle Ben, Mr. Stark. Now Happy. I've lost a lot. But my Aunt May says, used to say, that if we don't keep smiling when they can't, then we might as well just be gone too. And well, they'd want us to keep going.
As the group arrives at their destination, they see there's a horde of zombies surrounding where they need to go. Since Hope blames herself for this whole situation starting, and as she's about to turn, she chooses to sacrifice herself so that the others can move forward. She grows big so that she can carry the others to where they need to go. And as she's about to die, she says this.
Peter! Smile. Smile for me, okay?
The group is met with Vision, who Bruce is happy to see since he's the only one he recognized that isn't a zombie. Vision takes Bruce and the others inside and talks about what he's been working on. Vision shows Bruce and the others that he was able to cure the head of Scott Lang. The rest of his body was severed from him and his head remains in a jar. He's still alive and even able to make jokes like he usually does. He theorizes that the infection affects the mind and that the Mind Stone is likely what can cure the zombies. However, Vision doesn't have the means to hook up the Mind Stone to anything to cure the zombies. But Okoye states that they should have what they need in Wakanda. As Winter Soldier is wandering off, Bucky ends up finding T'Challa on a table with one leg missing. Now this part here, where T'Challa is on the table missing a leg, is definitely a reference from the comics. Hank Pym, who's Giant Man, keeps T'Challa around and drugged so he can chop up parts of him and eat them. But here, Vision keeps Black Panther around so he can feed parts of his body to Wanda, who's been infected. Not sure how the hell that happened, but yeah, she's a zombie. It's revealed that Vision's not only been keeping Black Panther around to feed Wanda, but he's also purposely lured in other survivors to feed them to Wanda. Wanda wakes up and goes after the surviving group. They try fighting her off, but even though she's a zombie, there's still no match for her. And so they all try to escape, but Okoye ends up getting caught by Wanda. Wanting to right his wrong, Vision takes out the Mind Stone from his head, which ends up taking his life. Wanda sees Vision dead and gets pissed off. Bucky tries shooting at Wanda, but she's able to protect herself. She then uses her powers to send Bucky flying. She tries getting to the 4 remaining survivors. However, Bruce was able to get the Hulk out, who fought off Wanda. While Hulk and Wanda are fighting each other, the other survivors manage to escape in the Quinjet. They're almost stopped by Zombie Hope, but they manage to get away from her. And so, our remaining heroes head to Wakanda, hoping to stop the zombie plague, to cure everyone that's been infected, making sure that everyone's death wasn't in vain. But unknown to them, a zombie Thanos was waiting for them, which is where the episode ends. This is by far still my favorite episode of What If. However, before I move on to the Marvel Zombie series, there's still a few problems I want to discuss that I have with this. Like, how the hell did Thanos, with 5 of the Infinity Stones, get affected by a bunch of Wakandans? So you're telling me that Thanos, with no Infinity Stones, can beat the Hulk, but when he has 5 Infinity Stones, he can't even beat a bunch of Wakandans? There's no way this should have happened. I mean, he has the Reality and Time Stone, so how the heck could this have happened? Another problem though is, how does Thanos even have the Time Stone? There's no way that Thanos should have the Time Stone. Doctor Strange still had the Time Stone on him. And when the 2 members of the Black Order showed up, they were turned into zombies and then quickly killed afterwards. The reason why they were there in the first place was to take the Time Stone from Doctor Strange and to give it to Thanos. But they never got the chance to in this universe. So how did Thanos end up getting the Time Stone? I heard people say he was able to track down the Time Stone and travel to where Doctor Strange's body was. It ends up taking the Time Stone from his dead corpse. And possibly getting affected somehow, which still doesn't make any sense. But let's roll with this. Let's say Thanos was indeed able to track down the Time Stone and head to where Doctor Strange's dead corpse was to get the Time Stone. Then why didn't Thanos do the same thing with the Mind Stone? He could have just used the Space Stone to go to where the Mind Stone was and take it from them there. Why would he have even bothered to go to Wakanda, when he could have just taken the Mind Stone from Vision? Going to Wakanda wouldn't even be necessary. The final thing I had that was an issue in this episode is the fact that there was too much joking around.
The less there is to bite.
Were you saying blam?
Was I?
Ow!
Ta-da! See for yourself.
Wait, who said that?
It was that ghost.
Oh, damn. Hey, would somebody turn me around? We messed up my entrance. You know, I need to get this thing motorized. Hey! I know what you're thinking. I've lost weight. Thank you for noticing.
You'll fog up your jaw.
Sorry, I know. It's just what I wouldn't give to get chewed out by that old grump one last time. I did it again. Zombie pun.
All the joking around takes away the seriousness of the situation. Now, I understand joking around is part of Scott Lang's character, but the comedy in this is even worse because Scott is more concerned about telling jokes than he is about Cassie, which is extremely damaging to his character. He's been with Vision all this time, and it's very likely he doesn't know what's happening with Cassie. For all he knows, she could be dead. And he's more concerned with telling jokes than he is with his own daughter? He would immediately want to know whether Cassie is dead or alive. At least when Spider-Man was making jokes, he was using it as a coping mechanism to deal with everything, so he can try to keep his and everyone else's hopes up. So that's why I'm fine with Spider-Man doing it.